All right, welcome to day 7 of the 30-day Bible reading plan. We're jumping to Leviticus 5 today, and the whole purpose of wanting you to read Leviticus 5 is to get a sense of the sacrificial system in the Old Testament, the way sin and guilt works, and what actually needs to happen for what we call atonement, which is something like a covering to cover guilt and sin. So we'll just kind of read through this quickly, and you'll get an idea here of how the New Testament then picks up on those themes of what Jesus accomplishes with his sacrifice, with his atonement. If anyone sins in that he hears a public adjuration to testify, and though he's a witness, whether he has seen or come to know the matter, yet does not speak, he shall bear his iniquity. So he knows something, but then doesn't do the right thing. But notice he bears his iniquity. Or if anyone touches an unclean thing, and then they're defined a carcass of an unclean wild animal, a carcass of an unclean livestock, or a carcass of unclean swarming things, and it is hidden from him, and he has become unclean, and he realizes his guilt, and it goes on here. Or if he touches human uncleanness of whatever sort the uncleanness may be, with which one becomes unclean, and it is hidden from him, when he comes to know it and realizes his guilt, or if anyone utters with his lips a rash oath to do evil or to do good, any sort of rash oath that people swear, and it is hidden from him when he comes to know it, and he realizes his guilt in any of these, you're starting to see a pattern, aren't you? When he realizes his guilt in any of these and confesses the sin he has committed, and here it is, verse 6, he shall bring to the Lord as his compensation for the sin that he has committed. A female from the flock, that's the compensation, right? Female from the flock, a lamb, or a goat. So these are all options for compensation for a sin offering. So here it is. You need something to atone for your sin. And we're going to see that right here. And the priest shall make atonement for his sin. All right, so there's compensation that's needed, even if it was unintentional, right? That's this first paragraph. If he comes to realize I've done something wrong, then he needs compensation to the Lord, all right? Compensation for a sin offering, and then the priest offers this for atonement for him, for his sin. And then there are some provisions for those who can't afford the offering that's needed. But if he cannot afford a lamb, then he shall bring to the Lord as his compensation, repeated language here, for the sin that he has committed, 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. So sacrificial system's pretty elaborate in the Old Testament. There are all sorts of different offerings and sacrifices. The main focus here in Leviticus 5 is the sin offering. He shall bring them to the priest, who shall offer first the one for the sin offering. He shall wring its head from its neck, but shall not sever it completely. Now, that sounds awful, I know, but this just highlights the severity of sin. He shall sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar. So when we talk about Jesus' blood being applied, we're talking about it being applied to the altar in this way. While the rest of the blood shall be drained out at the base of the altar, it is a sin offering. Then he shall offer the second for a burnt offering according to the rule, and the priest shall make, see it, atonement for him. Again, this idea of covering for the sin that he has committed, and he shall be forgiven. So even here we have God's grace in forgiving sin. More provision here in verses 11 and following. I'm not going to read those in this video, but you see down here in verse 13, thus the priest shall make atonement for him for the sin which he has committed in any one of these things, and he shall be forgiven. Then the remainder is for the priest as in the grain offering, so he gets some payment out of that. That's just how the priestly system was set up in ancient Israel. We'll look at verse 14 and following here to kind of wrap this up. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, if anyone commits a breach of faith and sins, this is all unintentional, right? In any of the holy things of the Lord, he shall bring to the Lord as his compensation a ram without blemish. Okay, so this has to be a perfect sacrifice. Out of the flock, valued in silver shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, and this is for a guilt offering. So we have sin offerings, we have guilt offerings. He shall also make restitution. So there's more to do here. For what he has done amiss in the holy thing, and shall add a fifth to it and give it to the priest. So there's more. This is the restitution, part of the restitution. The restitution would actually be restoring whatever's been done. But all of this is to make atonement. This shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and he shall be forgiven. So sacrificial system is, it seems very harsh, seems very severe, but it's all about forgiveness. But notice it is a very complicated process. If anyone sins doing any of the things that by the Lord's commandments ought not to be done, you may remember, if you have any sort of liturgical background, this great prayer of confession in the Book of Common Prayer, confessing those things that we ought not to have done and those things that we should have done but did not do. Though he did not know it, then realizes his guilt, he shall bear his iniquity. He shall bring to the priest or a ram without blemish out of its flock or its equivalent for a guilt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for him for the mistake that he made unintentionally, and he shall be forgiven. It is a guilt offering. He has indeed incurred guilt before the Lord. This is the real issue, right? Guilt before the Lord. And so here in Leviticus 5, we get a sense of what it means to live in the presence of a holy God and what is required. But the great thing about the New Testament is that Christ is both the perfect priest and the perfect sacrifice. As John says it, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Hope you'll join us tomorrow for the next video in the 30-day Bible reading plan.